Hello. The next speaker is Dr. Gopal. He has come all the way from Hyderabad, and he is one of the 6 directors of Axon Anesthesia Associates Private Limited. He is going to speak on basics of peripheral nerve stimulation and ultrasound.
Thank you for your introduction, Sailesh. Very good morning to all of you. It feels wonderful seeing a packed auditorium and so many people in the hall this morning for this workshop. So far, you've had 2 lectures on the basics. Rushari spoke on local anesthetics, and Dr. Bala, in his own inimitable style, spoke on functional regional anatomy. Before you break for your well-deserved tea break, you will have to endure one more lecture on basics, and this is on basics of peripheral nerve stimulation and ultrasound. And for this particular lecture, I request your undivided attention because peripheral nerve stimulation and ultrasound have come to stay as one of the main guidance techniques for practicing regional blocks. A couple of years ago at the Ross CME in Mumbai, Dr. Bala Venkat put up this picture of a person on a cycle and said that a person who is doing a block by using paresthesia seeking technique is like a person on a cycle. And as you can see from the mode of transport this person has chosen, there are no prizes for guessing that he usually reaches his destination late. And to keep himself bemused during the ride, he often resorts to daredevil stunts such as this. He then put up a picture of the Maruti Suzuki Alto car and said that people practicing blocks by using peripheral nerve stimulation are those who drive Altos. And finally, he put this picture of a luxury sedan, a Mercedes-Benz, and said that those who practice blocks by using ultrasound are those who drive a Mercedes-Benz. I've been driving a Suzuki SX4, which is a poor man's luxury sedan, for the past few years. I also own an Alto, yet from 2006, I've been one of the foremost proponents of ultrasound guidance for peripheral nerve blocks in my part of the country. He then put up this negative of a beautiful woman and said that with ultrasound, all you can see is fuzzy images of this beautiful lady in shades of black and white, and that you cannot actually appreciate the external beauty. But then, as enlightened individuals, we all know that external beauty is only skin deep, and sublime beauty, which is what we are all interested in, lies deep within. So I think we did manage to raise a few laughs then and even today, but the brief of my lecture here is to try and raise the collective standard with which we practice our nerve blocks. When you look at this slide, I do not want to talk about the art of finding peripheral nerves. I want to take away this element of mystique from the way we perform our nerve blocks, and I'll only concentrate on the science of finding peripheral nerves. So let us begin with peripheral nerve stimulation. Despite the fact that Perthes was the first to develop a peripheral nerve stimulator way back in 1912, it is only of late that regional anesthesia has begun to have a resurgence in terms of interest, and this is how a modern day peripheral nerve stimulator looks like. And the principle of peripheral nerve stimulation is very simple. It is the application of an electrical impulse in the vicinity of a nerve with the hope of eliciting a response. If the nerve is a purely motor nerve, you will have a muscular twitch, and if the nerve is a purely sensory nerve, you will have paresthesia. But as Dr. Bala rightly said, a working knowledge of physiology and anatomy is very, very essential before you worry about the structural anatomy of a nerve. And quickly, depending on insulation, you can have myelinated or non-myelinated nerves. Depending on the speed of conduction, you can have fast conducting nerves or slow conducting nerves. The small diameter nerves without any insulation are slow conductors, whereas the large diameter nerves which are insulated are fast conductors. And depending on function, you can have motor nerves, sensory nerves, mixed nerves, and somatic or autonomic nerves. Just a word about physiology, taking you back to your physiology days. On the outside of the cell membrane of a nerve, you have something called a resting potential. When you apply a stimulus of a certain duration and intensity, there is depolarization. And when this depolarization touches what is called a threshold level, you have an action potential. And the difference between high speed and low speed nerves is that the time taken for the resting potential to go up to the threshold level is much lesser with a high speed nerve when compared to a low speed nerve. There are two terms we use when we talk about peripheral nerve stimulation. One is rheobase and the other is chronaxie. Rheobase is the least amount of current that is required to produce a stimulated response. So this is the resting potential, and from here you can see that it is taken off. So this is the rheobase, and chronaxie has to do with time, which is the shortest time a current twice the rheobase must be applied to stimulate a response. So as you can see, rheobase has to do with the intensity of the stimulus, whereas chronaxie has to do with the time the stimulus is applied. Why chronaxie is important is you can measure the excitability of different types of nerve tissue. And as you can see here, Rushali talked about these nerves. You have A alpha, beta, gamma, delta, B, and C. It is C that subserves pain and also A delta. If you see the chronaxie of A alpha, which subserves motor response, the chronaxie is actually quite less. And with A delta, it is more, and with C, it is even more. Therefore, when you use a peripheral nerve stimulator, it is wrong to believe that the patient will also experience pain. You can induce a motor response without actually inducing pain in this patient. That is the importance of knowing what chronaxie is all about. So looking at the equipment, there is something called an Ohm's law, which states that the current output voltage reduces as the resistance increases. For example, as you put a needle under the skin, as the needle traverses through various tissue planes in search of the nerve or plexus, each tissue plane gives a certain resistance to the tip of the needle. And this resistance must not actually cause a current to drop. So what you need to do is use a peripheral nerve stimulator which has a constant current source where the output voltage remains same despite variations in resistance. That is very important. And the second issue that you should remember is that to have a depolarization, you must have a preferential cathodal stimulation. That is, the negative electrode should go to the needle, whereas the positive electrode should go to the patient. And there is something called a Coulomb's law, which governs the relationship between intensity of the stimulus and distance from the nerve. As you can see here, this is the insulated needle, and this is the geography of the electrical current. And this needle is at a certain distance from the nerve, and you have a high stimulus current. As this needle goes closer to the nerve, what you can do is you can just turn down to a low stimulus current. So the distance from the nerve is inversely proportional to the current that you choose. As you go closer, the current intensity needs to come down. The stimulating needle, we always use insulated needles, because if you use a non-insulated needle, the area of distribution of electric current is very, very diffuse. And when you use a stimulated needle it's got insulation right up to the bevel tip, you can see that most of this current is localized to a particular area, so the chances of picking up your nerve is even better. So there are certain standards for nerve stimulator. You must have an adjustable constant current source, a monophasic square wave output of the pulse. You must have a selectable pulse duration ranging from 0.1 to 1 milliseconds. You must be able to precisely adjust your output. Most are adjustable from 0 to 5 milliamperes, and you must have a digital display which you can easily understand. Safety features are also quite important. One of the most important safety features is a low battery alert and an open circuit alert. B. Braun recently came up with something called sequential electrical nerve stimulation, and they call this SENSE, and it is available with their HNS 12 peripheral nerve stimulator. As you can see here, the needle is away from the nerve. You have two short impulses followed by a long impulse. And when the needle starts to come closer to the nerve, if you can see here, the strength of the current compared to this is lesser, and the duration of this impulse is also lesser. So what this long impulse does is, it acts as a homing signal. It, at a very great distance of the needle from the nerve itself, it lets you pick up the nerve. So you're going in the right direction, and all these adjustments are done automatically by the machine itself without your having to do it. And once your needle is exactly on top of the nerve, you see 3 short pulses, and the current is even further reduced. This adjustment is done automatically by the nerve stimulator, and this helps in picking up your needle, the nerve, sorry. So the tips for practice with the peripheral nerve stimulator: you always apply the negative electrode to the needle, the positive electrode to the patient. You must have a square wave impulse with duration of 0.1 milliseconds. Initially, you are supposed to set a current of 1 milliampere when you are seeking the nerve. And when your needle tip is definitely very close to the nerve, you must be able to get a twitch at 0.4 milliamperes. If you still get a twitch at 0.2 milliamperes, it is quite likely that your needle is within the nerve. So when you turn down the current to 0.2 milliamperes, the twitch must be gone. Only then you are sure that your needle is just in the vicinity of the nerve and not within the nerve. So let's look at ultrasound guidance. I mean, despite the fact that peripheral nerve stimulator gave you a very good objective guidance technique, there were certain unanswered questions which led researchers to look for better guidance techniques. And this is where ultrasound came in. And ever since ultrasound has come in, it opened up a new paradigm in the way we practice regional anesthesia. So just to tell you briefly, a human ear can hear sounds between 20 to 20,000 hertz, and any sound that exceeds 20,000 hertz is ultrasound. And medical ultrasound uses sounds between 2 to 15 megahertz. So this is the basic principle of ultrasound. This is the transducer, and this emits an ultrasound wave. And ultrasound wave is a sort of mechanical sound energy that is propagated through a biological medium with alternating areas of rarefaction and compression. As you can see here, the propagation of ultrasound waves is not a continuous process. Rather, it occurs in intermittent trains, and each such intermittent train is called a pulse.